Hi, I'm Chris Bryce from superservice.com, and I'd like to talk to you about how to buy a CPU for a home-built computer. There's a couple of things to consider when doing the CPU purchase. First is the type of CPU that you're purchasing. The one thing that you want to make sure of is the main brands of processors that are out there, such as Intel or AMD, have different style of sockets that those processors fit into. Also, the different levels of processors between those manufacturers have different types of sockets. So if you get a motherboard out there that you wanted to use with, for instance, an Intel processor, you need to make sure that the processor type, such as Pentium 4 or the Intel Pentium Core Duo or the Centrino or Celeron processor that you choose, is matched to the right board, because the socket is going to be different. Now, a lot of boards out there have the ability to adapt, so they might fit a couple of different styles of processors in the Intel or AMD range. Once you've decided the type of socket and the type of processor that you need, then you can start with choosing the speed. Now, I generally recommend that you want to get at least a 2 gigahertz processor nowadays. Now, you've got hyper-threading and dual-core and quad-core processors even out there now, but I would still suggest going with 1.8 to 2 gigahertz to start out with. Now, if you're going to be doing graphic editing, video editing, graphic design, anything like that, then you may want to go with a higher speed processor, approaching maybe even the 3 gigahertz range. The next thing to look at is the amount of cache that you may need. The processor comes with cache, which helps allow the random access memory to access the processor and use the processor's capability to process all of your video, graphic editing, and that on the computer. The cache of 2 megabytes might be great for the standard user, but if you're going to be doing graphic editing, you might want to go with an 8 megabyte cache. Just a couple of things to consider there, and the price difference is a pretty big jump to go with a higher end cache. Once you've chosen the processor and chosen the motherboard, then you'll be able to combine those, put them in your home-built computer, and have a great running system. Now, the other thing to keep in mind when you're purchasing your processor is how much memory you're going to be using. I generally recommend trying to stay around the number of gigahertz of your processor in the number of gigabytes that you use for your RAM. So if you get a 2 gigahertz processor, I'd recommend going with 2 gigabytes of RAM to start out with. You can always easily add RAM down the road. But those are the things to consider when you're looking at buying a CPU for your home-built computer.